Making a great first impression. This episode, a conversation with Scarlett Rugers of the Scarlett Rugers Book Design Agency.
Your first impressions count whether you wanted to or not. You've got about 3 seconds to capture your audience's attention before they move on. And if you don't, then that's it. That sale's gone.
I'm Chris Wow, and this is DIY Author. You're an author. Maybe you're taking the traditional route. Maybe you've chosen an independent path. Or maybe you want the best of both worlds. Wherever you want to go as a writer, DIY Author is here to help you on your journey with advice, encouragement, and practical tips. Because do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone. Welcome to DIY Author. I'm your host, Chris Well. Our guest this time is professional designer Scarlett Rugers. Scarlett and the team at her design agency offer book design, web design, and they can even help you with a variety of other editorial and publishing services. The agency works with self-published authors, but is committed to helping you feel like a traditionally published author. Well, in the good way. Coming up in my conversation with Scarlett, we discuss the give and take of working on your book cover, the telltale sign of an inexperienced designer, and why it's always important to make a great first impression. Before that, I have a couple of items here. First, I've been getting some great feedback, thanks to those of you who have emailed me or reached out through social media. I do appreciate hearing from you. Some have asked about the different options to listen to this podcast, so here are the methods available. Number 1, you can listen on our website at DIYauthor.com. Number 2, you can listen via iTunes. That is available either on your computer or on the podcast app on your iPhone or iPad. Number 3, you can listen to us on Stitcher. Stitcher's a free app that works on Android devices and Apple devices, and it also works in your browser on a computer. Number 4, you can grab the RSS feed and plug that into your own podcatcher or podcast client. You can find links to all of these methods on our website at DIYauthor.com. By the way, a personal note here, I love Stitcher. It works especially well if you follow multiple podcasts, because you can set them up in playlists and it keeps track of where you left off each time, even if you switch from one device to another. I have Stitcher on my Chrome browser, and also on my phone, and also on my tablet. And the one account keeps track of what I've listened to no matter which computer or device I'm on. If you want to try Stitcher out for yourself, look for the app in the iTunes Store, or on Google Play, or the Amazon App Store. And now it's time for our latest author tip. This one was emailed in by Joshua Barella, who writes under the pen name Henry Oak. Here's that tip. Quote, "Write what you know. Grow your characters, places, things from what you know, unless you haven't been anywhere, done anything, or know anyone, but that's hard to believe. You have a friend. His name's Mark. Change Mark's name to Miranda, and give her a bad attitude, and a motorcycle, and a chihuahua that rides around in the sidecar. Or whatever floats your boat. Be creative. After all, it's your baby." End quote. Thanks to Joshua for that. You can connect with him on Twitter through his author name. That is Henry Oak Writes. HenryoakWrites. If you have feedback or something to share, there are all kinds of ways to contact us. You can leave a voice message or email us through DIYauthor.com/tips. You can also email us at info@DIYauthor.com. Or just go to DIYauthor.com and look for our contact page. And now my interview with designer Scarlett Rugers. But now I'm speaking with designer Scarlett Rugers. Scarlett, welcome.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You are a book designer, but you are more than a book designer. You are a web designer, and then you offer also an other range of services. What is the shortest, clearest way to describe who you are and what you do?
Okay, yes, I run a book design agency, which means that encompasses book design, interior design, marketing extras, things like that, web design for authors. I essentially started out in web design, so that's really one of my main strengths. But, yeah, look, book design, that's the biggest thing.
So how did you get started designing book covers?
I've been writing since 1998, and I've been running my whole life, and then I decided to get into design in 2005, and I was really trying to get myself out there and make a difference, and that's when I started in web design. And it wasn't until 2011 when a friend of mine who'd just gotten into the self-publishing industry, it was really making headway, and she asked me to design her first book cover, and I had always wanted to get into book cover design, but I didn't know how. It was a really hard industry to break, especially for traditional publishing. So I jumped at the chance, and we set up the photography studio, and we organised that, and it came out brilliantly. And then she ended up promoting that work on the Kindle boards. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. They're now the K boards, which is a fantastic forum full of great information in the writers' chat. But she promoted me there, and before I knew it, I was getting clients. And then here we are in 2014, and I run an agency with 2 designers beneath me, and we've got a team of people, and it's just awesome stuff.
Now, when I go through the services listed on your website, there's all of these packages that an author can choose from.
Yep.
And then it also says get in touch about editing, ebook formatting, beta readers, and other publishing services. There's this thing on the side that says, oh, if you're looking for chick lit book covers, go over to this other place. So my question to you is, with all of the different options, are you brokering to other people, or are these just a lot of different kinds of things that your agency handles?
When it comes to layout and design of a book, that's me, that's us. The chick lit book covers, that's sort of a secondary portion of Scarlett Rouges, but that was because I was getting so much work specifically for that I decided to specialize in that. So that's got its separate resources, that's run separately. With chick lit, you're looking at illustrations and photography that's really specific to that genre. And so I just decided to slice that piece of the pie off and just work on that and focus on that. But in both circumstances, we do book design, we do the interior design, and we do the ebook formatting. So that's for your Kindle, your Mobi, and your EPUBs and things like that. Obviously, I do website design as well. When it comes to the editing and the beta readers and the other publishing services, that's normally alliances that I've made with other really reputable businesses that I can refer you to, or that we can work with, in your place. So if that's something that you want to come to us just for one specific place, and you just want to deal with one person like me, then you can do that all through me, and then I deal with the whole team.
How often when a client comes your direction, they are looking for a range of these services versus the client is looking for something very specific?
It's very often they're looking for a bulk package. With our top package, the Elixir package, that pretty much covers everything so long as you want your book out in paperback and ebook form. So that's your interior design, your ebook design, and your cover. But then, considering you want to get out there and you want to do your marketing, a lot of people are now bulking that with website design. They're finding that to be that main platform to get their readers to come to them and to get that voice out. So it's huge packages. There is, often they'll come to me and they'll want to organize 2 or 3 books in advance. We specifically offer bulk discounts for more than 2 books. So if you want 3 or 4 books, then we can offer 20% off, which we find really helps, because that essentially means that, especially if you're doing something like a series, you want to keep with that one company who knows the design, who knows the branding, who knows the layout, who knows you and your process and how that works. So we find that really beneficial. So it really, of course, people come to me and they're like, look, I just want this cover. And that's where the type-only packages come in. We offer professionally laid out typography for your cover, which I find is so important in the quality of a book cover. So if you have an image that you know that you want, that maybe you found off a stock site or you've had an illustrator do for you, rather than just putting some text on there, you can come to us, and for a much cheaper rate than our normal packages, we can actually set out the type for you. So you may already have something in mind. So it really varies.
Given the all of the different ways that I could come to you for a cover, is there, if I'm asking for a larger package, do I need to build in more time to get it back, or what is the range of time it takes to make a book cover?
To make a book cover, in any circumstance, in any service that you're requesting in any creative industry, it really depends on your schedule. So for me, for the design agency that I run, for a book cover, you're looking at the initial concepts taking 7 to 10 working days. Then we send it to you for concepts, feedback, and then once we get that back from you, we normally make revisions within 24 to 48 hours. Now, obviously, that depends on the breadth of those revisions and what's involved, but normally we can turn that over quite quickly. But look, I mean, I've had some clients get back to me within an hour of sending them the concepts. I've had some clients who want to get feedback from their reading groups and their critique groups. I've had some, that where real life just ends up happening and I haven't heard from them within about a month and a half. So I just wrapped up a package with a gentleman who I was working with on his book cover since 2012. Like, that's how long it's had to take. When you're bringing in editing, especially if you're editing the book at the same time, you might find that you're having to go through a lot of revisions and your essential schedule that you'd initially laid out may go out the window. So although I can outline, look, it'll take this long, you really have to be prepared that the publishing journey is so flexible and always changing. There's not much that you can do about that.
And then there's also just finding time in your schedule. How far ahead should somebody be looking for you or a designer?
On a designer, as soon as possible, I would say at least at the end of your first draft, or at least at the end of the initial big bulk draft. So it's filled out, you've got front and end, and then you're going into the editing process. For me, can be booked up, in the low season, anything up to 4 to 6 weeks. In the high season, anything up to 2 months and more. So it depends on who you want to go with, how reputable they are, and how busy they are. So just to cover that, on my website, I have a booking form which will actually show you how far ahead I am booked. And you can book yourself in, and that way you can decide, well, okay, I know that she's now booked up until August. I'll need to get in now, or maybe I can wait, and that way. But yeah, my suggestion is get in as soon as you have the first major draft done, because then you've essentially got the theme of the story, and you can fill out a comprehensive brief for your designer.
And then for website design, what kind of a timetable would a person need to look for if they want to get a website built from scratch or redesigned?
The same is time frames are the same for websites. So 7 to 10 days for the initial concepts, and then turnaround times are a little different because you're dealing with coding and different development issues. So it could be 3 to 4 days. But, if you're talking from scratch, I mean, what we specifically offer is WordPress website design. I do coding from hand, but I just find that the CMS system for websites for WordPress are just so user-friendly for authors I keep it simple, and that's what I offer. So, yeah, they're the turnaround times for that. If you're looking for something hand-coded, it's going to be longer because I have to develop something from scratch. If you want something actually redesigned and you're already working off a theme or a foundation, then that's going to take less time because that means that we don't have to rediscover the whole branding journey again.
Now, when an author comes to you for whether it's a website or a book cover or something, how much should the author already have something in mind what they want versus they should come to you and with no idea whatsoever?
Okay, so when a client comes to me and let's say that they've booked themselves in, what I need to know is what they want basically by around the week before we launch. And we want to make sure that we've filled out the brief and the agreement and we've got everything going. Now, when they book themselves in with me, they don't have to know what they want if there's going to be that much time. I don't need that brief or that questionnaire straight away. So I encourage people, to go to Goodreads, to go to Pinterest, to go to Amazon, to scour their genres, to see what they like and specifically what they don't like. That's really important. So that when we come to launch week, they have at least some idea. Now, I'm not saying they need to know everything. I mean, that's obviously part of my job, but also, one thing that we offer is reading the manuscript, and I find that so important, especially coming from a writer's perspective. It's just so often do I read a manuscript that there's like a scene or a theme or something symbolic that is perfect for the cover that the author never realized that they'd actually written in the first place. And then especially if that's a series, that can echo across. So that gives us the opportunity to sort of draw those things out of the manuscript. But obviously, the more information you can give us, the better. But sometimes, because the author doesn't have the experience of the designer, they may not know what's right. So, in my experience, I prefer not to do characters on a cover. I don't like to put faces and things like that. I think that can distort the relationship between the book and the reader and what they can imagine. But yeah, it depends on how much the author wants to trust the designer. We want to say that, you should trust them all the time. But as I said, it's a creative journey. It's a purely collaborative relationship. You must have input from both sides. So, even though I can say, well, look, they don't have to have anything, you would have some idea of what you want or don't want. So just something basic, at least for us to work off, I think is best.
In the kind of the creative back and forth, how often do you run across an author that they really, really want something that you really, really think is the wrong thing, and you can't get them to let go of that?
That's probably happened about 5% of the time. I mean, I've worked with over 250 authors, and in the span of that, there's very little that, look, it's my job as a designer not just to say don't do it, but to tell you why. I mean, there's got to be a reason as to why it doesn't work. So long as that collaboration works, so long as the communication is open and we're both hearing from, each other, then it should be okay, because the author's going to pitch to me, look, I really want this, and I really want like bright pink, and I want Comic Sans, and I want the whole shebang, and it's going to look really pixelated, and I just need it at 32 DPI. That's all I need. So, when I hear that, I got to tell them, look, it's not going to work. But not just that it's not going to work. I got to tell them, look, 32 DPI is going to look like crap. Pink's okay, that's a fine choice, but we can't ever use Comic Sans. That's pretty much a sin. And then follow that up with experience and, industry statistics to show them that this is why we make these decisions and this is essentially why you've hired me. But look, on the other hand, I have to be open to hearing what they've said, because so often has a client pitched something to me and my first thought is, are you kidding me? I can't even deal with that. I need to just walk away for 5 minutes. But it's, I come back, I sit down, I try it out. I don't ever just say to an author, no, unless it is Comic Sans, obviously. But, if they've pitched something to me which, look, doesn't sound good, I'll try it anyway, because I fully admit that there are things that surprise me, that catch me off guard, that I learn about, that it's like, hey, that actually works. So it's up to me to be open to that as well.
Are there ever instances where an author comes to you and you decide, like up front you say, you know what, this is just not a good fit, and maybe even you recommend them to a different designer?
Yes. There's been maybe 2 instances of that, but the first one was textbooks. I only very rarely do textbooks. I recently did a textbook series for a local, for the Monash University here in Melbourne, and that was with the upfront confession that what they're going to get is much more creative than what they usually get. My concept of a textbook is very different. It's not commercial, and they were fine with that. We moved forward. But before that, there'd been a guy who'd pitched me textbooks, and my experience with textbooks in the past, I realized that wasn't my skill. That's not what I want to be doing, so I said no. But the only other issue was there was a gentleman who inquired with me and then had great difficulty with providing me information and filling out the agreement, the contract. So, everything I do is really streamlined, and I make it as easy as possible. So it's all just done through forms, and you can do it without any problem. But he got very antsy about the fact that I couldn't read his brain, I couldn't read his mind, and that I actually needed a brief and I needed a questionnaire from him to know, even the title would help, his author name on the cover, even the most basic stuff he wasn't willing to give me. So that's where I had to say, okay, maybe we're not the greatest fit. I wish you well. And yeah, he came back quite offensively, actually. It was very surprising, but I've got him marked down as do not work with. That's and he's my only one.
Yeah, I don't know how to follow that up.
Yeah, look, when you're dealing with someone creative, when you're dealing with someone in the book cover industry, you have to at least give them a title and a name to put on the cover. Can we please just start with that?
Okay. I just can't imagine. I'm sorry. I'm completely stymied. I can't imagine somebody doing that. But okay.
It did surprise me, but as I said, it is so rare. This is one person who I've worked with over the years. It came out of the blue, and it was that. It happened over the span of about 2 weeks, and it really, at first the emails were going like normal. What's your book about? And do you have any ideas? And, where would you like to go from here? But then when I was trying to remind him, in order to get this information from you, I need you to, give me a brief, give me anything. He just got very, walled up and like I'd really stepped on his toes. So obviously there was something going on there that I'm not aware of, and hopefully he did find someone who works with him. I wasn't able to recommend him anyone because everyone I know needs that brief. So, yeah, it was a bit heartbreaking, but I'm not sure that there's not much else you can do.
Yeah. So, okay, for authors who feel like they can't afford a designer, what would you say to that person about, why they need a cover or what they can do if they feel like they have to do it themselves?
Okay, so why they need a cover? Because you wouldn't turn up to a job interview in your pajamas. You wouldn't turn up unshowered and smelling like a garbage man. That's I can't put it any other way. Your first impressions count whether you wanted to or not. You've got about 3 seconds to capture your audience's attention before they move on. And if you don't, then that's it. That sale's gone. So when you're dealing with self-publishers, you really have to remind them that they're entering a business. You are entering a business. You are becoming a business, which means that you're selling a product. That's your book. You've got to make the investment in your marketing. You've got to be strategic, and you've got to know who your target is. So, when you're thinking about who your genre is and who you want to sell your book to, saying you want to sell it to 18 and 80-year-olds doesn't help. You need to be thinking like a business, and that's something that I think a lot of self-published authors miss out on. They still sort of see it as a hobby that's going to make them a bit of money, but if you really want to make the money, you have to treat it like a professional source of income. So that means investing in the best quality resources and services that you can. And the first thing, even before you get to the cover, you must invest in an editor. You must. I cannot emphasize that more because, when you are publishing something, you are saying to the audience, this is the quality of my book, and this is what you should expect from me from here on. And if it's low quality, if it's still, spelling errors and grammatical errors and layout errors, then people are going to trash it and move on. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, okay, if you're on a tight budget and you don't know where to get your cover or what to do, you've got a couple of options. The first one is, which is what I recommend to anyone, is get in touch with the designer that you initially want and ask them if they have a payment plan and if that's something that you can work with. I offer payment plans, and that goes over a fortnightly or a weekly or a monthly basis. And that can actually work to your benefit because then you're getting the quality product You're investing in your book's potential, and that means that you're establishing a really good relationship with this designer, and that you know that you can work well together. Okay, so if that doesn't work, the second thing is look at the pre-mades. Pre-mades are huge now. Like, pre-made covers, over the last 6 to 8 months, they've just boomed. Like, I can't look at a designer's website without seeing pre-mades. I think mine's probably the only one that doesn't have them. But pre-mades by a quality designer. So, pre-mades can be made by professionals and the hobbyists. You really need to consider getting a professional one, and that's why I'm recommending it. Not the cheap, crappy ones. Go for $50, $60. It will be worth the investment. So they come in all sorts of genres. And then the third thing, if that still doesn't work, then go to a stock website or, a photo website. Get the photo that you want, get the image that you want, even if it's an illustration, and get a designer to do the professional typography. Like, that at least is specific to your book, and it's still customizable to your book. So, if you're coming to me and you've given me a photo, that way at least the typography can talk about what your book is about, especially if it's a sci-fi, if it's a fantasy, if it's a romance. You can't just have, really default style typefaces. You really need, giving the book cover the chance that it has to get out of the shadows and speak for itself. So, 1, payment plan with the designer, 2, pre-mades, or 3, type-only design.
Those are some really good options. Thank you. What are some common mistakes that you see people making on indie book covers?
Typography. First thing, absolutely typography. And when I talk about typography, I mean the type placement and layout on a cover. And, obviously the type choices, the font faces, and the colors and all of that. So it is so often that I've seen an author go to an illustrator, invest hundreds of dollars, $400, $500, $600, make this absolutely incredibly beautiful piece of artwork, and then they end up putting this cheap font face on the cover that does nothing. If you have a cheap image and a good font face, good typography layout, that cover can work. If you have a good illustration, bad typography, that cover is still going to look cheap. It's the typography that actually makes it. I can't stress that more, because that's the one thing that is always let down. So if you go to a book cover designer who doesn't actually have a lot of industry experience, that's where you can tell the difference. You can tell by their skills in typography. If they've got good skills, then they know what they're doing. You can trust them. They fulfill the brief. They do really good design. If they're still lacking and it's still, it doesn't quite reach there, then more likely they haven't been in the industry quite as long. They're still finding their way, or they could just be coming from a hobbyist perspective. So, typography all the way.
For somebody who doesn't have a trained eye, how is an author going to tell the difference? I mean, are there warning signs that anybody could see when you? I feel like there are some authors that they can't tell the difference.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Look, the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm probably very wrong about this, is price. If you're going to be priced cheaply, that means that that means that you're offering a cheap product. And I'm not saying that someone who prices expensively is giving a good product. Please do not get me wrong. I know where that fails. But at the end of the day, the people with the lower skill sets and the lower end, like the hobbyists and that haven't been professional designers in any industry, let alone book design, they're probably going to be $50 and under. In my experience, I've hired on interns and things like that, and I've always found that their skills in typography has been their first real lacking, their real failure. So it really takes that time to grow. But aside from that, you really have to look at the other books in your genre and the quality of those. And I'm not talking self-published, okay? You need to be looking at the traditional published book covers. And that's how you can tell. When you go into your local bookstore or Amazon or anywhere, one of my favorite places to go is Lithtopia. on Goodreads and just to get all of the inspiration from there, because they've got lists and lists of books and you can just scroll through the book covers. If you find them that have traditional published books, which is the majority of them, then you can begin to really get an eye for quality. Like it should stand out. It's the little things, it's the little tweaks, it's the color scheme, it's the balance, it's the fact that you don't realize the type sits so well, that it fits so well. Like when you're reading a book, let's say you're opening up a book and you're ready to read it. A lot of people misjudge how important interior book layout is. So if you're opening up to the first chapter and the paragraph looks squished and the text is like 0.9, which is absolutely tiny, and the book's really thick, you don't even want to read the book anymore. There is a visual cue that's telling you this is uncomfortable to read. So the same goes with book covers. There shouldn't be anything on the cover that says, oh, this is hurting my eyes, or this is uncomfortable to look at, or this feels a little bit unbalanced. So I suppose those general visual cues should give some indication, but at least giving comparison to high quality professional work is one of the best things to do.
And then turning our attention to website design,
Mm-hmm.
what do you see, what are some of the common mistakes that you see on author websites?
They're a bit empty. Look, when I do websites for authors, it's ready. There's a point where it's like, okay, I'm ready to put your copy into the website, which means the text for your about page and the home page and things like that. And I don't think authors are really quite ready with what can go on a website. Not what should. Look, you can have one word on a website and it does the job. But what can go on a website? A website can be really fulfilling. You can have so much integration in it that, like, even if you've decided to do your own website and you've gone somewhere and downloaded a theme, the themes these days are so meaty that you can customize them like to the nth degree, and the amount of stuff that you can have on there, you can interact with people, you can have your reviews, you can have this, you can have that. Like, I think authors really need to fully encompass what a website is for them, that it's their shop front. That's what any website is. So get your books on there. Get a blog, absolutely. But, obviously pretty much all the authors that I work with do blogs, but, only half of them update them regularly. So make sure you're updating them regularly. Get interactive, invite people on there, run raffles, like use what a website can be used for. That would be my recommendation.
If people want to find you online, you are at scarlettrugers.com. That's Scarlett with 2 T's,
Mm-hmm.
RUGERS.com.
Yep.
And and from the website, you are linked to Facebook, you are linked to Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And on the website, all of the options are here. And then did you write all these articles, or are people writing these?
No, that's all by me.
Because the website's chock full of articles and content for interested authors. So they should come see you, I guess is really what I'm saying.
Yes, they should. But one
right.
of the things that we really I pride myself on is a professional traditional publishing experience. Like when you're coming to me, you should be leaving feeling like a traditional published author. We want you to feel like the best author you can be. And we've tried to make that as easy as possible so that when you come onto the website, you know exactly how much it costs, you know exactly what you're going to get, outlining the time frames, all of the articles, just making it easy for you. And the main thing is that if you have any questions or if there's anything you want to know, ask a designer, get in touch with me, get in touch with someone else. They are happy to answer your questions. Never assume that you should know how the process works. That's their job. They should tell you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Scarlett.
Thank you, Chris, for having me on.
This has been DIY Author. Please visit us online at DIYauthor.com and be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. If you enjoyed this program, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone.